Welcome everyone, Costin here with a discussion about Freyr in Age of Mythology Retold, and to talk about why he doesn't quite make the cut in terms of 1v1 games. He's a decent enough god, but in some ways, he's actually the weakest of the Norse gods, and there are some issues that I do see with the Norse inherently that are made up by various benefits that Odin, Loki, and Thor do have. But Freyr has some significant weaknesses in 1v1, and I just don't think he quite makes the cut in that respect. For team games, I would say he is a fairly solid choice in a lot of ways, but for 1v1 games, yeah, he has some problems, especially early on, but even later on. So let's take a look at Freyr, the good, the bad, and why I don't think he quite works out. So his focus is on technology and defense. He has a potent defensive god power that gets more powerful with each age advancement. Now this god power, the Golden Boar, is a good unit to summon. It's great on defense, it can deal with a lot of enemies, and it gets stronger and stronger and stronger with each age. Here's the problem though with this Golden Boar. It has a long cooldown to reuse, and on top of that, reusing costs 300 favor on the second cast. So realistically, you're only going to use this once in a game. Maybe twice, if even that, because there are much more useful things that do not cost 300 to use. Things that are permanent, like consider Hel. Yes, she's a minor god, you have to choose to go with her, but consider the Nidhogg. To reuse the Nidhogg, you have to pay a 350 favor cost. And the Nidhogg is permanent. It can't heal, but it is permanent. It's also a flying unit. It's not leashed to a town center. Well, the boar isn't leashed to a town center, but it does become far less useful the further away you move it from its spawn point. It can be a great defensive tool, but if you're fighting Freyr, you can just be like, okay, he summoned the boar, let me get out of here, right? Wait for it to despawn or go to another location where the boar isn't and try and harass the enemy, those kind of things. That is certainly a problem in its usage. I mean, I think the power it has is fine. The cooldown it has is fine, but reusing the god power, which is a pretty big deal in Age of Mythology, is way too expensive. Even if it was dropped to 100, it's not like you would just be casting this on cooldown, because you do have other things to worry about, upgrades, other god powers that you'd want to reuse. So that is an issue. His other benefit in the Archaic Age is that he gets Freyr's Gift, which increases the hit points of all units, but it does cost a lot initially, though the cost decreases significantly with more technologies researched. So that is significantly more useful, but just bear in mind that cost. So it can be very cheap if you research a good amount of technologies. But this brings me to the second point, the technology benefit that Freyr does have. Technologies cost minus 50% food, wood, and gold, but take 150% longer to research. This is both a good thing and one of Freyr's chief benefits, because you can get more armory upgrades, more economic upgrades than other people, and technically faster because you'll have the resources for it, but not quite. See, the problem is, for things like ox carts or your armory, this isn't really an issue. But for your barracks, for your temples, for your town centers, this can be a real problem, because that time to research may not actually be worth having your town center, your initial one, especially when you only have one. It may not be worth your initial town center, your initial temple, your initial barracks not doing something for a substantial amount of time, far more substantial than you would otherwise, while you're just researching upgrades. You know, things like medium, heavy, champion infantry, cavalry, and so on and so forth. So that is an absolute problem that you will have to contend with when you are playing as Freyr in multiplayer or even skirmish. It is a pretty substantial issue because it means you are leaving yourself more vulnerable. You could argue that, well, you have more resources, you can build more barracks, all that. Fair enough, but consider this. You get that wood, food, and gold benefit. 4 gets better dwarves and cheaper dwarves, right? And he also gets gold mines he can spam all over the place. Odin gets a significant food benefit. Loki produces ox carts that are 50% cheaper. And he can make gatherers and dwarves into berserkers for free. These are not insignificant benefits. While this is a significant benefit on paper and in practice in quite a lot of ways, it does also hurt you in other ways as well. So if you're playing Freyr, one of the things you are going to have to contend with is you're not necessarily going to save as much money as you might think. Or if you are saving money, you're saving it at the cost of not producing as many units and as many gatherers or dwarves from your initial town center if you're getting technologies from it. That can be a problem, especially early on, because less units, less gatherers will create a lot of issues for you against early game aggression. You're supposed to have the defensive benefit. Okay. In H2, you get either Freya or Uller. So let's consider this. Freyr is good if you want to have the cavalry benefit and hero benefit. So you can get 15% extra HP with heroes. You can get HP for cavalry, all cavalry, and speed for all cavalry. You can get Valkyries, which are a good raiding unit. Her god power, extremely situational. Forest Fire can sometimes be annoying, like you put it on the enemy's wood line. That can cause some chaos over there that you might take advantage of. But yeah, I think Forest Fire, it's like one of the most situational god powers. But Valkyries are good, the upgrades are good. But you then have Uller. You look at Uller, he gives you hill forts in tier 2. Get one for free, the other ones you can recast relatively cheaply, especially because you have Ring Oath, which reduces the favor cost of using Asgardian Bastion by 60%. And these bastions do build automatically and faster in later ages, so you don't even need to assign a worker for it. You can just wait for it. Obviously, assigning units to help build it is pretty good. Then you have Draugrs. So Draugrs are pretty solid myth units, archer myth units. They can do a good amount of damage against infantry units, against human soldiers in general. Not necessarily so great against enemy myth units, keep that aspect in mind, or certain types of myth units. So in general, they're not going to be particularly great against myth units. They are, however, going to be pretty good against human soldiers. So if your enemy is building a lot of human soldiers, this is a pretty good benefit. Then you get speed for your longhouse units, 5%, all right, if they're standing idle. And then you can get portable rams, so you can do some early siege aggression with portable rams in tier 2, if you get this upgrade. Keep in mind the time, however. That is a substantial amount of time that this would take to get this particular upgrade, so bear that in mind. Because 63 seconds is something that can hurt you. Like if you're spending 63 seconds. Though realistically, you probably wouldn't be training anything from your health fort before you get this upgrade. Still, with some proper timings, but can be tricky with respect to that. But it does improve the work speed of all health forts. So training and research rate plus 20% can help with massive extra research rate that Freyr does have, but not quite really. It's like, you know, dropping just a bit in a cup already full, or trying to drain one drop of water from a full cup. That's kind of how it feels with that particular upgrade. Then you have, then talking about hill forts and hill fort units do 10% damage. If things had been as before, this would have been a great upgrade with Jarls, for instance, though that's been changed in Retold. So yes, it benefits, you know, Huskarls, it benefits Rams, it benefits Ballistae, but very limited pool of units over there. Like, we consider like Odin's benefit over here. Human units and heroes regenerate HP over here. Or we can think about like getting a free dwarf for each upgrade over there with 4. Or Grey Hole units generating 25% favor and Bal. That is pretty substantial. So just keep that aspect in mind. In tier 3, we get either Bragi or Aegir. Bragi, he has the Battle Boar, he has Berserker, a Berserker benefit. He gives regeneration and increases speed of myth units, which can be pretty useful with the Draugrs. You get Herdman, your Spearman, to inflict more damage, especially against cavalry. Pretty strong. And then he gets the Long Serpent, which blesses your longbows, causing them to become bigger, stronger, and to fire more arrows as they damage enemy units. Or Aegir. Tempest, the god power Tempest, is a really useful support ability in a battle. Support. It's not necessarily going to do a ton of damage, but it is going to slow down the enemy. It's going to freeze them. It can really help to turn the tide of the battle. You will need other sources of direct damage, but for a support god power, it is pretty great. Rock Giants, great tanks, can soak up a lot of damage, really useful and solid units, and of course you can also upgrade them. And then you can also get healing from your town centers and health forts. So this is actually a very strong defensive benefit because, yeah, obviously you will get healing action. So from town centers and health forts, pretty sizable benefits. Then you get the 9 waves. So your heroes and siege weapons get speed. Get speed and extra damage. A lot of extra damage over there with Aegir. Okay, and then he has the Grasp of Ran, which can summon Kraken near enemy ships that damage your dragon ship, that your dragon ships are attacking. So that can be useful. And then in tier 4 you have either Hel or Vidar. Hel can be extremely powerful in certain situations. The Nidhogg is strong, the Giants are strong, she gets Granite Blood as well. That is pretty damn powerful with Fire Giants. Not something to be underestimated. Or you get Vidar. Now I think like Vidar should have really gotten the Wolf Brood, but you do get Fafnirs. Fafnirs are incredibly powerful myth units. They do a ton of damage, they're pretty durable, they do a lot of AoE damage. So that is great. But you can give the enemy gold if they do kill your Fafnir. So just keep that aspect in mind. But all the free gods that Freyr has, they're great. Like the problem with Freyr is not coming from the minor gods. In isolation, these gods are fantastic in isolation. They give a significant number of benefits. You get more HP for human soldiers. And your human soldiers also get more damage against heroes. You get Avenging Spirit, so Herseers, their hammers grow increasing in size and damage as they fight. That's pretty powerful. So basically your Herseers kind of become mini Hydras in a way. Though obviously nowhere near as doable, though certainly faster. And then you get a benefit to Berserkers when standing idle. So yes, this is what they're talking about. Benefits. And also they get the temporary damage benefit when one of your military units falls in battle nearby. So all of that is pretty solid. The minor gods are not the problem. But the Hill Fort thing, not quite as impactful. The technology benefit, it's useful for ox carts, it's useful for the armory, but it causes so many recruitment issues, it's not even funny. Like, I've played Freyr quite a bit since I got my hands. Like, it was one of the first things I tried to do. And you do feel the limitations. Like, you compare this to playing, say, like Odin or Loki or Thor, who have their own issues. Don't get me wrong on this. Like, Thor and Loki are not necessarily in great positions in 1v1. Let alone something like Zeus or Hades or even Poseidon for the Greeks. There is a night and day difference over here with that. Now, one of the benefits you do have, and it is not an insubstantial one, is you get free building repair, and your gatherers and dwarves can also repair. So you don't need to assign your military units to do it. You can use your gatherers and dwarves to do so for free. That is certainly a strong defensive benefit. Absolutely. I just feel like the boar should be something you use more. And I feel like the technology time that takes for military production buildings, I'm not complaining about the ox carts or armory, that's whatever. But for military production buildings and town center production, that is genuinely a significant problem. And it kind of feels like a very limiting factor in a lot of ways. Because you do need those technologies, you can't ignore them. Well, you could ignore some of the things on town center for a while, but with longhouses, with great halls, with hill forts, you do want those upgrades. It is a problem when they take longer to research. So that is one of the significant issues. I also just feel like, yeah, health forts right now just don't necessarily offer the tangible benefit to say, oh, 10% damage is really that important. Don't get me wrong, Siege is powerful. It's useful to use, but, you know, Huskarls are very situational. And Siege, while having 10% damage, is not something to sneeze at, right? It's still not going to feel all that great. Like, I'd say the most impactful benefit that Freyr does have is, like, yeah, the free repairing capability. And, of course, the minor god. So, the reason Freyr can work very well in a long game, pretty self-evident. Cheaper upgrades in a long game, typically a team game, will give you that edge that you would want against an opponent. But in a 1v1 game, very different situation. Also, the fact that you can use the Golden Boar to summon defense on your ally, undeniably strong benefit. Not really, even in a team game, you would struggle to reuse it. And even if you could reuse it, would you rather reuse the Nidhogg or Aegis Storm or Inferno from Vidar, which is a really powerful ability, by the way. Like, just, you use this does a ton of damage along the way as it hits its destination. It won't wipe out on any base, but the enemy is certainly going to feel the impact when this lands. So would you rather reuse that? Would you rather reuse Tempest or Flaming Weapons or Asgardian Bastion? Or would you rather reuse a time-limited Boar? I think the answer to that is pretty clear. So that's my perspective on Freyr. Costin signing out. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and enable notifications. And look, this is still early days, right? We have to wait for balanced patches, major ones, not, you know, the minor one they released. They released a minor balance patch. We want to see a major balance patch coming in once the meta is settled some more. Because, like, one of the things I would say right now, the meta is certainly not settled in a lot of ways. Stay tuned.